breaking down Red Raider baseball like only we can. This is the Talkin Baseball podcast from Double T 97.3 and DoubleTSportsNetwork.com.
Hey, what's going on? Welcome into another episode of Talkin Baseball. See these? Well, if you're listening, that doesn't help. These are smiles because the Red Raider baseball team, they're winners of a series for the first time this year. And, well, the most important series you've played so far this year, a Big 12 series. Not just winners, but sweepers as the Red Raiders go to Houston, pick up a road sweep over the Cougars. And finally, Jamie, it feels like they put it all together in one weekend.
Yeah, no doubt. It feels like in every facet of the game, and I'm not saying any facet was perfect, but in every facet of the game, you played good baseball and you were improved from where you've been. When it comes to starting pitching, Mac Hewer was terrific again for the second straight start. He gives up just one hit. It was a homer, and the one run that Houston scored on Friday night, and that was in 6 innings of work. He was really, really good. And behind him, Parker Hutera was phenomenal in relief. So that was maybe one of the first times all season long we'd seen great starting pitching followed up with great bullpen work. So that was great to see. Again, combine the two, just give up one hit. If you're going to do that, you're going to win a lot of Friday night games. So great job there. Clutch hitting on that night by the Red Raider offense. Man, there were just some big at-bats over the course of that game, and 2 of the 4 runs came on 2-out RBI hits. That was massive. If we want to get a little bit more specific into it, I thought the biggest at-bat in that game on Friday night was in the 3rd inning with 2 outs. Kyler Thompson comes to the plate, 2 outs and nobody on base, and he's down 0-2, and he works a walk. He steals second, and then Damian Bravo brings him in with a 2-out single, gives the Red Raiders the early 1-0 lead, gets the momentum in their dugout, and I thought that was huge. I thought that was massive, and again, it started with 2 outs in the inning, nobody on base, and an 0-2 count to Kyler Thompson, and so, he does what he's known for doing, getting on base, and is able to come in and score. He ends up scoring 5 runs for the Red Raiders this weekend, scored 3 of the 4 on Friday night. So I thought that at-bat was, in the grand scheme of the whole weekend, was huge, and it's indicative of what Coach Tadlock wants to see from his guys, and that's just keep battling, go win the next pitch. Kyler did that in that at-bat, and what it led to, maybe at the time people didn't think, it's just 1 run, no big deal. I thought it was really big. The same thing could be said on Saturday in the 1st inning when Bravo gets on first with 1 out and Robin Villeneuve comes to the plate and he's down 0-2 in the count. He works it back full. He fouls off a bunch of pitches, and on the 12th pitch of the at-bat, he hits a 2-run homer. So you've won Friday, and now early on Saturday, you claim some early momentum, and, Houston was a little bit tight, Nancy after losing the opener and all that. I know that was a massive at-bat as well. So those are some of the things that we're talking about with Coach Tadlock. Also on Saturday, just an awesome performance from Jack Siebert out of the bullpen. I can't say enough about how his attitude has been so good after being, quote-unquote, demoted from a starting pitcher to a reliever. He's been a starter the last couple of seasons at USF on the weekend. He's moved into a reliever role, and he looks great in that role. Man, 5 2/3, 2 hits, no runs. He really shut that game down in a game where the wind was blowing out. There was lots of offense. Tech won the game 13-8. He was obviously massive. Also massive on that day, Logan Hughes and Robin Villeneuve each hitting 2 home runs. That was big.
That helps.
That was big as well. But Siebert's performance on Saturday, I thought, was just huge. And then you move on to Sunday, another great start from Zane Petty. He ultimately doesn't get a win because he only goes 4 2/3 innings, but he gives up just 1 run, and you will take that every time.
Absolutely.
Every time. And then great work behind him in the pen. Logan Beavis really kind of calmed things down after he came in. And it was just, whether it was really aggressive and solid base running, whether it was clutch hitting, whether it was hitting with power, whether it was really good starting pitching and really good bullpen work choice, and even really good defense for the Red Raiders.
That happened.
You had all of it. this weekend.
Yeah.
All of it this weekend. And it was great to see. You didn't give up a single unearned run this weekend, which is a huge change from what we've seen. So I'm not here to tell you today that everything has been solved, everything's fixed.
Right.
We're going to rattle off a 40-game win streak or anything.
I'm okay with that.
But I would be.
You want to?
Yes. But what I think we saw is that, okay, this is a team that hasn't quit because they started 3-11.
Yeah.
Okay. And maybe the fact that they were able to kind of get a reset heading into Houston into Big 12 play was exactly what they needed. And also, hey, they look like a pretty talented bunch. They can win a lot of different ways. And this is what we saw in the fall. This is what we saw in those scrimmages. So these are for people like myself who came into this season really excited about this team because of what we had seen in those fall scrimmages, in those spring scrimmages. That was the kind of baseball that we had seen.
Yeah.
Okay. And so you can be a little frustrated, as I am when I look at it and say, okay, well, where was this for the first 14 games? Because you knew you had the ability to do it. But at the same time, we don't know how good Houston is. They finished 12th in the league last year. We don't know how good. They were 11-4 coming in. So I don't know how impressive of a series win this was, but what I know is the Red Raiders got back to playing good baseball, and that's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, I don't think you're in position to pick at how impressive any series win is when it's your first series win. And it seems like it felt like the Red Raiders were a team that just couldn't get anything rolling this year, any momentum on your side up to this series. Yeah. And sometimes you have to figure out a way to create your own momentum to get that ball rolling down the hill. And you finally did so. And I think that Kyler Thompson at bat that you're talking about just got the ball rolling, and it felt like it snowballed the entire weekend. And it just felt like that was a different team, playing with confidence, playing with that momentum, and it was just a different feel to the team.
Those are the plays that winning teams seem to make.
Yeah.
Those are the plays that this team had been lacking of having through the first 14 games. So it was nice to see them in multiple occasions this weekend make those kind of plays in tough situations. Go back to the first inning on Friday as well when Houston's got a runner at third with one out and there's a line drive hit back up the middle and Mac Hewer gloves it and doubles off the runner over at third base. Another one of those situations where, you probably can call that a little bit of luck because a guy hit it hard, but you just haven't had that luck this year. You haven't. Those balls have gotten through, or they've gone off the pitcher's glove, whatever.
Right.
But you made some big plays. Villeneuve was spectacular defensively. Mm-hmm. Your infield solid. I mean, it wasn't perfect by any stretch of the imagination. A couple errors over there on the left side, but much improved. You looked confident, and it looked like a team that, when they're playing like this, can compete in the Big 12 Conference. And what we saw through the first 14 games had you wondering that a little bit, or had some wondering that a little bit. But clearly, that tough schedule factored in for the Red Raiders, right?
Sure,
I mean, you're talking about the sixth toughest non-conference schedule in the country through those first 14 games. All the travel the Red Raiders had gone through, all those things factored in. And then this one's on the road again. So you've played away from home for the first 5 weekends.
Wow.
So, all of that factored into this, but it's a battle-tested, road-tested team, and hopefully they can continue the momentum that they picked up this weekend.
So you mentioned a ton of different names because there were a ton of different contributors. Obviously, you get some good starting pitching, good relief out of the pen. Robin Villeneuve, he's great with the glove, and he's great with the bat. Comes through for you several times.
Damian Bravo.
Damian Bravo,
offensively and defensively.
So who's the MVP of this weekend? Who had the biggest weekend? Because it feels like you could point to so many different guys.
I think I would probably go to Villeneuve.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, man. There's something to be said for a guy that just sets the tone on Friday night, though. So, man, I could believe Mac Hewer could be deserving of that conversation.
It was big,
even though he only plays in one game. But Villeneuve and Logan Hughes, your left fielder, he homered 2 times on Friday. Had a 2-run double yesterday. Had a triple on Saturday as well. I mean, he was terrific. So. Logan's big day again Saturday with the 2 homers and a triple, and then big swing yesterday that drove in a couple of runs. It felt like he was all 3 days did good things for the Red Raiders.
Yeah.
Same thing with Villeneuve. Just his at bats are great. It's just where he's seeing a lot of pitches. He's coming up with some big swings. He's hitting with power. Those are good. Just they're up and down the lineup. It feels like there were guys that were really contributing. Dylan Maxey swung the bat well this weekend. That was great to see because he's playing in front of a bunch of his hometown fans. And oh, by the way, man, it was awesome to see.
Oh, my goodness.
It was full of Red Raider fans. It's hard to tell because everybody's wearing red with the Houston crowd too, though. But if you were listening or if you were watching on television, you could hear a ton of Red Raider fans. It felt like Texas Tech owned that part.
Yeah, so I was going to ask you about that.
Kudos to the Red Raider fans because they made it feel like home games.
It seemed like every time they would pan out on television to the berm, it's, wait, that's a Tech shirt. That's a Tech shirt. Like everywhere. And then you hear after all the highlights, you listen on the radio, and it's huge crowd or huge roars every time Tech does something well. So not surprising how Tech fans show up, but still – you got to appreciate it when you go anywhere else in the state.
Well, and a huge part of that is that the alumni has a lot. There's a lot of alumni in Houston.
Sure.
Number one, but there's also a bunch of players from the area that brought in a lot of fans as well. There were lots of number 2 Thompson jerseys and number 26 Maxey jerseys in the crowd, and that was really cool to see. And
you got former players too from the area.
Former players, I mean, it was awesome. And on Sunday, right before Dylan Maxey hits his home run, you hear somebody stand up in the crowd, and I'm just guessing who it was. It sounds like some, sarcastic cousin of Dylan's, maybe an uncle. I don't know. I'm thinking of my family.
I want you to find out who it was.
Yeah, and this guy yells, "Come on, Dylan!" And the pitch comes in, and he cranks a 2-run homer. And so
it was great.
That was fantastic.
Yeah, that was fantastic for sure. So, big weekend. You got to see the good out of the Red Raiders. Can it be sustained? No midweek game with New Mexico. We'll get into that as well as the series, a big one, coming up with TCU this weekend after a word from our friends at Andrus Brothers.
When you want the brand in West Texas roofing, there's only one company to call, Andrus Brothers Roofing. Like our Red Raiders, Andrus Brothers knows that to win, you have to be better than your competition and you have to dominate in all phases. With over 40 years experience, Andrus Brothers has mastered these concepts. So when the high winds and debris damage your roof, there's only one company to call, Andrus Brothers Roofing. Accept no substitutes. Stick with the starters on the ABR winning team. Andrus Brothers Roofing, we nail it every time.
All right, Jamie. Texas Tech not playing against New Mexico. This one rescheduled or planned to be rescheduled for a later date, but no Tuesday game, depending when you're watching or listening to this. That may have already passed. But so you wipe that midweek game and get to focus solely on TCU this weekend. The question is, can Texas Tech repeat the magic or just play good baseball again for a full weekend?
Yeah, no doubt. And when you looked at that's the big question, right? You're saying, is what we saw this weekend the real Red Raider team?
Right.
Or is what we saw through the first 14 games the real Red Raider team?
Yeah.
Was Texas Tech really good this weekend, or is Houston not very good? We don't know. Okay, you got a sample size of
fair questions.
Yeah, you got a sample size of 3 games in Big 12 play. So if anybody out there is saying, okay, we got everything figured out now, no worries, I would say tap the brakes. Tap the brakes. We'll have to wait and see. It was great to see them play the way they did this weekend, and I think everybody who's associated or a fan was excited, but at the same time, there are tough games on the schedule in front of you, and that starts this weekend. And really, probably the most entertaining Big 12 series of the weekend was in Fort Worth, and your next opponent is TCU at home Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And TCU won the low-scoring game against Arizona State on Friday, but then on Saturday they give up 26, lose 26-9, I believe, or down 20-0 before TCU gets on the scoreboard in the 7th or the 8th. And then yesterday ends up being a 1-run game that Arizona State wins 12-11. So that was a really good series, 2 one-run games. It seemed like everybody across the conference was scoring a bunch of runs on Saturday. As a matter of fact, in the 6 games that were played in the conference on Saturday, the winning team averaged scoring 14 and a half runs. Sorry, went basketball there. 14 and a half runs for the winners on Saturday. I think the weather and the wind and everything across our region has something probably to do with that. The Red Raiders scored 13 in their game in Houston, but that was a really entertaining series there. So that's who you have next on the schedule is TCU. The Horned Frogs had been on a 7-game winning streak before they lost those 2 games to Arizona State. But that's a team that's hardly left the Metroplex. They went out to California for their first weekend series, and then they've been in the Metroplex since then. Yeah. Which, that's got to be nice, right? Not a lot of travel, not going to Chapel Hill and to Vegas and to Phoenix and Houston, all the above like the Red Raiders had. So
much different than what Tech has done.
Yeah, TCU was picked to finish in the top 3 in the Big 12 Conference by the coaches, and always a talented team.
Yes.
Glad the Red Raiders are playing at home because it seems like they have more success against the Frogs at home than they do on the road, which is the same with most teams.
Typical.
But yeah, absolutely. But TCU's a good squad. They've got some really good veterans returning from last year's team. They're always active in the portal, and they've got plenty of money to spend there. And so they've done that again this year with bringing in some key guys. So this one, the Horned Frogs 1-2, having lost their first series, that they're trying to get back on track. And so this is, to me, feels like a really good measuring stick for the Red Raiders this weekend.
Yeah, I think so. And you mentioned offense. Don't forget last time they played on a Friday night in Lubbock, Texas.
Oh, what was the final of that one?
I just had to look it up. 20-16. Good job. Yeah. That game was one of the craziest games. What were you down 8 at one point? Down 8 runs, and I think you scored 9 in an inning. It was just.
And that was a lot of wind that night.
A lot of wind that night. Could have some wind coming up this weekend. Surprise, surprise, West Texas. But I think this is going to be an interesting series. And one thing I'm going to want to watch out for is you had some lineup changes this past weekend against Houston. Garrett Bain was in the lineup at times. You had TJ Pompey playing short some. So what do you think sticks from this past weekend as far as movement in the lineup?
Every bit of it.
All of it. So
every bit of it. I think
you don't mess with what's working?
Yeah, no, I think it's as simple as that, right? As for right now, I'm not saying it's going to be that way the whole season.
Yeah.
Okay? But Garrett Bain acquitted himself fine over there at third base. He had 1 throwing error. Okay? Probably went for 1 ball that he should have let Pompey have at shortstop. Mm-hmm. But they have a lot of confidence in Garrett Bain with the bat. And so I think they're going to give him an opportunity to get out there and swing it and hope he kind of really gets himself going. There's also really nobody behind him that's pushing him. Okay? Peyton Schultz, who we talked about a lot in the fall, that was been a really good player in the fall, he's struggled to get going. And they gave him a couple more opportunities this weekend, and he can't seem to get himself going, and you're hoping that happens at some point. But right now, I think Garrett Bain's he was solid this weekend defensively. Yeah. And then, got some key hits for you as well. So I think you're going to let Bain stay there. And for whatever reason, I mean, this little merry-go-round that TJ Pompey has been on with starting his career as a shortstop, and then he was your second baseman, and then they moved it to third, and he's going to be great at third, and now he's at shortstop. He just looks comfortable at short.
Yeah.
He looks more comfortable. I'm not saying it's flawless. He had 1 error this weekend, but also made a couple of tough plays. And then Joyce made all the simple plays.
That's what matters.
Made all the simple plays, and that's what you want him to do. Yep. Turning double plays when the opportunities are there to turn double plays. He did that alongside Tracer Lopez, who is a guy over at second he's there for his defense, right? Yeah. I mean, Tracer gave you good at-bats this weekend, probably his best weekend offensively, but you can count on Tracer Lopez defensively. So he's the guy in that infield. Well, you can include Villeneuve in there as well.
Sure.
Those guys are great defensive players. The right side of the infield, those guys are good enough defensive players.
Yeah.
But again, TJ Pompey just looks like a different player over there at shortstop.
It looks like his natural position.
Yeah, he looks like a guy that is just like he's. I don't know if it's like a sigh of relief. Okay, now I'm comfortable in my surroundings. I like where I'm at. Yeah. He looks like he's a better player. He's not thinking as much.
Right.
He's just making plays, and so I think Coach Tadlock and company have settled on the fact that TJ plays best at shortstop. Okay, and we saw last year at times he was really good, but then struggled there a bit, and you had to make the move and move him over to second base. But
Right.
I think for at least for the short term, I think he's going to stay there, and it's his job to lose at this point.
Yeah.
And so, as far as the outfield goes, I don't think you're wanting to move anybody there. Thompson's at bats are great. Center Hughes is a big time run producer, leads the team in RBI. He's a guy that seems to come up in big spots, and you love his aggression. And then Damian Bravo, a really good two-way player for the Red Raiders as far as offensively, he's really good, and then makes great plays in the outfield with a strong arm over there and right. So I don't think you're going to mess with it too much. Maybe Davis Rivers gets more work behind the plate. You're not going to expect Maxey to catch 3 days in a row every single weekend.
Yeah.
But so that's probably something that fluctuates a little bit, and maybe Davis didn't have a great weekend swinging the bat, so maybe somebody else gets a shot in the DH spot.
Right.
If they're swinging it well, whether it's Salvatore or somebody else, you just never know. Or Peyton Schultz, maybe he gets a chance there, but. I don't think this lineup's going to change right now. I think this is what you're going to roll with.
Yeah, definitely don't want to change what's working, but it definitely worked very well for you on what was your total run production? 28 for the weekend.
Yeah, now
take that any weekend.
Yeah, now Coach Tadlock is going to want to get guys at bats and work them in. So in the midweek games, you'll probably see some changes in those lineup. I know, like Salvatore is a guy that they would want to see out there. I know they have a lot of confidence in Kendall Johnson and what he can do defensively. So they feel like if he can get more at bats, he can get a little bit more confident in at the plate and do some good things there. And they love his speed on the base pass. So I think those are a couple of guys that I expect to see a little bit more of, and so maybe they'll get their opportunities when you start to see Tech playing more midweek games.
All right, so big one coming up obviously this weekend. You can hear all 3 games on either Double T 97.3 or 100.7 The Score, depending on basketball, but Friday night's game will be on Double T 97.3, Red Raiders and Horned Frogs. That will do it for us. Hopefully we get more Happy Talks next week. But,
Happy Talks.
Come and join us again next week. For Jamie Lent, I'm Chois Woodman. It's been Talkin Baseball, brought to you by Double T Sports Network.
Breaking down Red Raider baseball like only we can. This is the Talkin Baseball podcast from Double T 97.3 and DoubleTSportsNetwork.com.